Welcome back to Askewed Reviews. Today we are doing another fan request, and it is for the 1995 adventure drama history film, Apollo 13. Here is your trivia question for today. What famous actor's mother actually helped design the abort guidance system for the real Apollo 13? The answer will be at the end of this video. At the beginning of the film, we meet Jim Lovell, who is an astronaut, and his wife Marilyn. They are hosting a watch party with all of their family and friends to see the first moon landing. You see, Jim desperately wants to be able to walk on the moon, but he is a few missions away before his opportunity will come up. Now, as a stroke of luck, the group that was going to be part of the Apollo 13 mission had to back out. So now Jim and his teammates, Fred and Ken, are now going to be the ones to go walk on the moon. Now, the group runs into an unfortunate situation, as one of the people that they've interacted with has the measles. So, this causes Ken Mattingly to not be able to go up, as he is the only one who has not had it yet. This then causes Jack Swigert to be added to the team, as he is part of the backup team. The group finally makes it into space on their way to the moon. Unfortunately, an explosion occurs, and now the team has to make their way back to Earth with very little power and very little oxygen. Can the crew members of the Apollo 13, along with Mission Control, figure out their way back home? All the while, family, friends, and the rest of the world are watching on the edge of their seats. This movie is, of course, based off of actual events that happened involving the Apollo 13 mission. And, of course, the astronauts that they mentioned are the actual astronauts that were involved with it. Tom Hanks, of course, plays the main character Jim Lovell in this film. The real Marilyn Lovell said that Hanks managed to get all of her husband's mannerisms and style down perfectly, other than two things. Apparently, when he swore in the movie, that's something Jim would never do, and Tom Hanks is right handed, while Jim is actually left handed. This film is also the first time Hanks plays anyone who's a real person, which he happens to do in quite a few films afterwards. As for who else could have played Jim Lovell, apparently Jim himself actually thought he had a resemblance to Kevin Costner. That never actually ended up happening, though. John Travolta was actually offered the role first, but he turned it down. This is actually the second time John Travolta has turned down a role that went to Tom Hanks. The first time was in Forrest Gump. Bill Paxton plays the role of Fred Hayes, but that role almost went to John Cusack, Charlie Sheen, or even Michael Keaton. Kevin Bacon plays Jack Swigert in this film, but the role was originally offered to Val Kilmer. He had to turn it down as he was already doing Ghost in the Darkness. Gary Sinise was actually the second actor hired on after Tom Hanks, and he was told he could play any of the other astronauts that he wanted to. He specifically chose Ken Mattingly, though, as he said, "I want to play that guy. Without him, they won't get back." It's not stated as to which one, but Brad Pitt was offered one of the main character roles. He could not do it, though, as he was already working on the movie Seven. Ron Howard is the director for this film, and he's even stated in interviews that this was his favorite film to make. He managed to get quite a few of his family members into the picture, including, much more prominently, his mother as Blanche Lovell and his father as a priest. Kathleen Quinlan played Marilyn Lovell in the film, and was even up for an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. Ed Harris plays Gene Kranz in the film, and was also up for an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. Another interesting fact is, the vest that Gene Kranz wears is actually in the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum to this day. In the film, Ed Harris says the famous line, "Failure is not an option." Apparently, Gene Kranz never actually said that in real life, but he enjoyed the phrase so much that he took it and used it as the title of his autobiography. Here's another interesting piece of trivia about a quote. The famous line, "Houston, we have a problem," was technically said by Jack Swigert first. As he stated it over the radio, they didn't hear him all that well, so they asked him to repeat it, and it was actually Jim Lovell who then repeated, "Houston, we have a problem." Oh, and here's another one about a quote. Bill Paxton's character actually at one point states, "I could eat the ass out of a dead rhinoceros." This was actually suggested by actor Gary Busey, who was visiting on the set that day. He had also actually said the exact same line in the movie Point Break. Apparently, some of the actual people that the film was based off were in the movie, including Jim Lovell. He's actually the captain on the USS Iwo Jima that picks up the group of astronauts and is shaking hands with Tom Hanks. Some of the actual images you see outside the window of the Earth and the Moon are actual pictures that were taken during the Apollo 13 mission. The spacesuits used in the movie were real working spacesuits, and they actually cost $30,000 each. To get the anti gravity look in the film, they did sometimes use a seesaw type device, but a lot of times they actually used NASA's KC 135 airplane, also nicknamed the Vomit Comet, that would go up very quickly and then fly down very quickly. And they would be able to do 20 seconds of weightlessness. And it took about 13 days to get all of the scenes put together. Apparently, none of the actors actually got sick during this process, which they were very proud of, but a lot of the cameramen did. The real Apollo 13 capsule is still on display in the Kansas Cosmosphere in Hutchinson, Kansas. The movie Marooned has some similarities to the actual Apollo 13 mission. And what was really strange about this is that 6 days before the mission, Marooned actually won Best Visual Effects at the Academy Awards. The scene in the film where they're trying to put together a bunch of junk that the astronauts would actually have on the ship to help with the CO2 issue inspired Kathy Rogers to create the show Junkyard Wars. Apollo 13 is actually the second of three movies that Hanks and Sinise worked together on. First, there was Forrest Gump, and then the third movie was The Green Mile. This last piece of trivia is my favorite involving this movie. Apparently, Ron Howard handed out review cards at the premiere. Most were positive, but one review said, "There was no way the crew would have survived the mission. Typical Hollywood ending." Apparently, this individual had no idea this was based off of true events. So I did enjoy Apollo 13. I felt it was a good movie, but at times I felt they really went almost too far into the technical jargon. Like it definitely lost me at times because it just seemed overwhelming. So unfortunately, I think I'm going to have to give this movie a 3 out of 5. Now, as for the trivia question from the beginning of this episode, what famous actor's mother actually helped design the abort guidance system for the real Apollo 13? It was Judith Lee Cohen, who happens to be the mother of Jack Black. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews. If there is a movie you'd like to see get a review, just mention it in the comments. And as always, like, comment, share, and subscribe.